this is an opportunity for us to really rethink how we show up in our environments, both professionally as well as personally. Again, you've probably been introduced to the concepts of life coaching and how it is an opportunity to really build on your current experiences to help you move past previous experience to help move past current barriers. So today, with that as the groundwork, I really just wanted to give us an opportunity to think a little bit deeper about how we're showing up. Today, we're going to be going beyond the basics of just competence. I really would like for this session to be about how to embody calm assurance in high pressure moments, especially when your intellect, your preparation, your presence is being advised, tested, reviewed, which we know is a part of your experience when presenting for your programs. So this is about bringing your excellent competence into the room with you. So just a couple of goals to set up this next hour. What I would really love for us to be able to do is identify how confidence breaks down under scrutiny. We've been in those situations where we have to present in front of a group, and we lose our thoughts, we lose our composure. Maybe we get a little flustered. How can we kind of break down those situations and figure out ways to kind of master them? I want to also introduce something called the cognitive behavioral performance loop. So it is going to be a diagram that kind of goes from what is our initial trigger in those high pressure situations and what is the result that we receive and how can we work towards changing that result by breaking the sequence down. We'll also kind of have a practice around reframing in real world scenarios. So when we are in those high pressure situations, how do we change our energy? How do we change our thoughts? And then towards the end, I'd like to introduce a scientific competence protocol, working on names. So let me know if you have any ideas. But something that you can walk through presentations and discussions with in tool to be able to move forward confidently. So, as we're moving forward, think of specific challenges that you've currently experienced in your past, where you want to feel more grounded and more sure of yourself. And let's hold that for some of the exercises we'll complete together shortly afterwards. So, first and foremost, confidence is not equal or greater to confidence. When belief is low, confidence remains small, even when maybe your competence is high. And so to explain this a little bit, you've all proven your competence. You've applied for the program, you received your scholarship. You're here, so we know you can do the work. But confidence isn't just our knowledge sometimes. It's a belief in that knowledge under pressure. And so our goal today is to elevate the belief that we have about our competence to match, or our confidence rather, to match our ability. We have extraordinary competence, believe that everybody is capable and worthy. We just have to believe in that ability to be able to execute at the level that we're seeking. So before I go a little bit further, I do want to just open up to any questions. What are some initial thoughts that you may have before we move forward? Oh, okay. Sounds good. So let's get into the cognitive behavioral performance loop. So this is a tool we can use in coaching to kind of identify what is the sequence of events, what are the emotions that we feel, what are the thoughts that we think when we are put into those high pressure situations to show both our competence, but also be able to demonstrate our stronger confidence. Um, Confidence doesn't mean you never really feel pressure, though. I just want to make sure that we preface that. It just means that we are identifying an opportunity to interpret it in a different way. So, when your thoughts shift, for instance, when you're preparing to present a hypothesis, or you are about to provide maybe a conflicting viewpoint in a discussion, your nervous system naturally follows with that thought, with that trigger, rather. And before we explore some more examples of like what those triggers are, you could take a moment to look and visualize this diagram. When you have that trigger and your nervous system might get a little bit of a jolt, you have an initial thought. That thought leads to an emotion. That emotion leads to a behavior. That behavior leads to a result. And we can show this shows how one small mental shift can kind of cascade through your body and how that results in how you show up. This results in how you respond to the environment. So think of this diagram as kind of like a mirror showing you how your mind, your body, and your behavior kind of coincide with each other under pressure. But also, it's a cycle, right? It's something that we can identify. It's something that we can be able to put thoughts and perspectives to and break down so that we can figure out how best to affect it for our ideal result. And so that's why we have this question here. Once you kind of go through this loop, what story does your mind tell you when your confidence dips? Is there anything that is kind of comes up to you now, actually, when you're thinking about maybe a past experience where you've had to present? Do you have any ideas of like what the stories are that kind of pops into your head in those instances? Would you like to share?
Actually, I was thinking about something that happened last week because I'm in the process of the contract for the PhD. But last week I received this email telling that I needed to answer the first one telling that I accepted the offer. But actually I had already done that, and I was a little bit triggered about that because uh, something about my confidence is that I'm always thinking about the bad scenarios. So when I received this email, it was like something bad was about to happen because this email from last week was telling me you need to do that before this date. So I was triggered about that, and I was anxious and thinking about that that opportunity was not going to happen, but it was just a mistake. I received another email the day after, so that
Mhm.
was the experience that I remember when you're sharing this diagram.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that because I think we were able to even see when you were telling the story, like the email came in and your nervous system shot up. Oh, I did something wrong, right? When in reality, I did this already. You know? And and identifying those moments, identifying what those initial fears were, and then also you're mentioning that, like, it kinda made you second guess yourself because your body was kind of responding to the initial email. Like, those are the exact situations that we have the opportunity to sit down and kind of sit with. And the beauty of these cycles, especially in these diagrams, visualizing them even, is that we can actually say, okay, if this was the trigger, if this was the thought, and this was the emotion, and how da 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 da, then how can I change that part? And that's what I want to work through today with us. So I'm glad that you already had an example. Let's see if we can put that into our sequence. So, um, as explaining, this loop happens in seconds, right? Because even though you've done the work, literally, maybe you know and anticipate your trigger and responses, but your brain naturally interprets curiosity as a threat, right? So this is not a lack of confidence. It's just your nervous system trying to protect you. It's trying to ensure that you remain right, you remain safe at all times. And so when we think about this real world example in the cycle loop, we have a trigger of, somebody asked the question. And maybe sometimes the thought is, oh, I didn't explain it clearly, or they found a flaw, or maybe I stumbled. That emotion can naturally be anxiety. The behavior, you might start talking faster. You might start apologizing. You might start over explaining, and the result is that reinforced self doubt. Again, being able to break it down and seeing the sequence, still allowing us an opportunity to be with ourselves and be good stewards of how our bodies are responding to these situations. But the beauty again of the visual is that we also have the opportunity to reverse the loop, right? So replacing that thought with something more supportive can lead to a better emotion or a better feeling. And in this example, that new thought after that challenging question is, you know, they're testing the idea. They're not testing me. And the emotion that we can apply can be one of curiosity. And I love curiosity because it activates more clarity. It also provides a little glimmer of hope. And when we are in challenging spaces, what we need is to create more space, more openness. And that's naturally what curiosity can do for us. The behavior from that can be, we pause, we breathe, we clarify. And the result, maybe we come through with a calmer tone. Maybe we have a clearer answer. Maybe we are able to really drive home what we already know is in our mind and in our bodies. Because again, we have that competence. We plan, we prepare, we study, and then we execute. But in those spaces, you're no longer, when you move to those spaces with that better thought, that leads to that better feeling, you're no longer defending or protecting against a thought that feels down. You're way more engaged. It becomes then a challenge that you're able to tackle. You feel confident to tackle. So from that, I wanted to just kind of explore a quick exercise, and we can all participate. I hope that we do. And in this, I would really like for us to go through the scientific competence protocol. So, the first thing that we'll do is we will identify a scenario where competence might have faltered. From that space, we want to map out what was the trigger, what was the thought, the emotion, the behavior, the result. And then in that protocol, we'll move to rewriting that new thought. That is really the space that change that's the catalyst for the rest of your sequence. So what is that more supportive thought that we can include in our cycle? And then let's think about that desired emotion, what that can be for us, that behavior, then that result. And then we will go through an exercise of anchoring that into our bodies because we have to be specific when we go through situations, when we go through exercises like this. We are because when we do that, we're already beginning to put ourselves into the experience um, of our succeeding, of our moving through that space with more confidence. So let's give about 3 or so minutes, maybe 5, to go through our own scientific competence protocol or our loop. And you can give me a thumbs up when you're done, and we will move on from there. So we were going through and creating an example of what that looks like in our current environment. Um, here, and I do think we still have time. Letitia, would you like to go through the exercise? Okay, awesome. So let's get some more time here. We have 30 minutes, so that's a-okay. And we will give us a thumbs up when you have your result. But I'm gonna leave that here. In the meantime, we'll hold tight. Let's just hold tight, guys.
Então, eu não entendi bem o exercício e o que que é pra gente fazer. Tá dando pra ouvir? Ok, obrigada.
Brianna, you are in the mute.
Excuse me. We're working it out, guys. Let me get that out the way if I can. Boop. Okay. So we were going through a protocol after experiencing or being introduced to that diagram, we wanted to put our own life experience through that diagram. So, have you ever been in a situation where you are about to present a hypothesis, or maybe you are in a situation where you have to present, or someone's asking you a question that you may have a conflicting opinion on, right? That trigger is the question. What is the thought that you might have had in response to that trigger? What is the emotion that comes up after you have that thought? What is normally the behavior that leads after it? And then what is the end result? And if you have an example where that trigger led to a result that you really didn't that you may want to change in the future. You may want to have a new result that is more aligned with your confidence, with showing your with aligning with your competence, because that's what the overall topic is for today. Um, what is your new thought that you would prefer to have? How do you want to reframe that? Um, because we this exercise is designed to help you rethink the cycle, rethink the result, and start to visualize a better result that maybe aligns with a better story that you want to tell yourself and one that you want to lead. And if you hear baby squeals in the background, I have one. So, and it's getting close to bath time.
I use it the email situation. It's okay, or it's necessary to be a presentation situation or hypothesis situation?
Not at all. It can be any situation. It can be one that's within the school, or it can be, in life. Maybe there's a relationship trigger, maybe there's what have you. Um, I'm open to your examples. Because
Okay,
again, the real life examples are what helps us make real life changes. Because we're able to feel, experience, and then also feel and experience ourselves changing and making better choices. Hmm.
okay, thanks.
And thank you for that. I didn't clarify that.
All right.
So, Letitia, do we have a thumbs up, or are you ready?
Então, eu tô pensando aqui ainda o que que eu posso falar, o que
Okay,
que eu
no
posso
worries.
pensar, e o tempo
Okay.
tá passando,
Well,
porque
it
ai,
oh,
posso
it's quite all right. Well, in the interest of time, because I do want to make sure that we can ask some questions at the end. Let's go through one of the examples so that you can kind of get you can start to hear the connection. So, I had a cute little quote. Confidence doesn't live in your head. It lives in your body. And that's why I mentioned, feeling into the experience and understanding, like, and having one that you can really pull on, because you can create new beliefs, but it also helps you really drill down on that reframe. So, I would like for us to share that reframed thought. But before we do, let's practice the embodiment. And I am a yoga coach. I do believe in breath work and calming of the nervous system. So I would really love for everybody to sit upright in their chairs, have a nice tall spine, feel your feet on the ground, and let's all just inhale for a count of 4, okay? Now, let's inhale and exhale. And just feel your shoulders relax, release that tension. Maybe if you were thinking about an experience that did bring up those initial triggers, you're kind of allowed to let that go. Now, if you feel comfortable to share, please, we would love to hear your reframed thought aloud in this calm state. Whenever you're ready.
The one from the exercise?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I think the idea was to rethink on the first thought, right? To
Mm-hmm.
the reframe.
Yes.
So the bad thought in my scenario, in the email scenario, was that the PD was not going to happen because of that email.
Mm-hmm.
And the rethinking process, it was to remind myself that I answered the email, that I was in contact with the HR group team, and to try in the emotion part to try to calm down myself because I was anxious in that in that point. So I think the emotion should be switch it for calm down myself. I don't know how to express this in English. And the behavior, I think that because I start answering everybody and start sending emails to other persons that could help me, I think that I should just focus on the one that was the mistake. I think that if I was starting reframing the process with that, I was avoiding the anxiety that I felt at when I discovered that it was only a mistake.
You intuitively pulled out something that I think is so key for us whenever we are moving through these cycles. And again, I call out that they happen so quickly. But what you intuitively called out is like the power of the present moment. And in that present moment and in the reframed cycle, you shared if I just sat and focused on the one email,
Yeah,
after having the opportunity to remind myself that this is something I've done. Like this is I've fulfilled my responsibility. My expectation is complete, you know? Really sitting in those moments, finding that calm, reminding ourselves that we can relax,
yeah,
can really be the key to changing everything else. And we often, it's so natural to lose that pause, but there's a lot of power there. So I really appreciate you for sharing that.
Brianna.
Yeah. And hold on to that. Hold on up with your breath and and remember that soon.
Yeah.
Did we have any additional reframes that we wanted to share?
No, I just thought in that one. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we can continue on.
I
And
I can share one.
oh, yay.
So I'm say when one situation, there are actually two. One is also related to emails. When people misunderstand emails, and you write an email like happy and such, and then the response comes upset because the other side understood something different, or they felt offended by something, and how this creates a lot of stress, because when you receive an email and you realize the other side got it like wrong, then like, oh, do I send another email? And sometimes the my like go feeling to go is to respond that email in very details, defending my position. And that takes me further and further to more and more misunderstanding. So anytime that happens, from time to time, that happens even with the simplest thing. it creates an anxiety. And then, so what I want to resolve now, and I've been successful in applying, is when I get this sort of situation, like you said, stop and maybe either call the other person for a call, or as you said, being curious. I think that would help. Ask a question that could clarify the situation instead of going directly myself trying to clarify. I would ask so the person could clarify further. So that is what I want to now, like, get the feeling. Instead of being anxious next time, I will remind myself to be curious and ask a question and not try to explain myself in an email, because it's very hard to explain feeling in an email. Yeah.
And that intuitively touched on something else as well, out of the curiosity, the power of asking clarifying questions. On both sides. But yes, the emails is always just very tricky, I think,
But
on the
yeah.
professional and personal side. So we just, whenever you hear the ding, let's just let that be a trigger that we can take a deep breath. But thank you so much for sharing that. Ah, yes. Um, and do we have any additional reframes that we want to share, experiences we want to offer? Okay, awesome. So as we are moving forward, I just wanted to again just give it an opportunity to take on some more breath and have more skin. These are real world applications and situational reframes. Um, we already started with the Q&A. Somebody's asking us a question, whether in person or an email. We can reframe by they're testing the idea. They're testing, they're curious about my question. They may just not understand, but they aren't challenging me. I don't have to take this personally. I can be curious here. In collaboration, as opposed to maybe downplaying our competence, maybe we have an opportunity to remind ourselves that we have value and we can share that value with more curiosity, with our curiosity. In presentations, we can learn that there is power in the pause. We do not have to rush. And if we stumble, we always have the opportunity to stop and then move again. And then with leadership, right? Clarity, not perfection. We do not need to be, well, in leadership, we do have to have a certain level of professionalism, but we don't have to be perfect. What we need is clarity to build that credibility. We need consistency. We need people to be able to understand where we're coming from and to be able to show that consistently with our behavior. So, confidence isn't very loud here, we're seeing. It's not shaking the tables, it's not a vibrato, it's just clarity under uncertainty. How can we begin to tell ourselves the truth of these situations that we're experiencing rather than our fears? And what if instead of performing this confidence of thinking we have to go in with all of the energy and maybe even all of the answers, maybe we practice calm authority. Maybe we practice feeling the ground beneath our feet and breathing before we move, knowing that our authority is based in our knowing. Because again, we remind ourselves that we are highly competent. We are here because we've worked hard. We deserve to be here. Now, how can we just show that in a way that is respectful and shows our confident authority? So, on that note, we have an opportunity to reflect. And we did a little bit of sharing, but I love more. What surprised you about the reframing process? Was this something that was new to you? Um, I have a few questions here. What shifted in your second loop? How does your body signal confidence versus fear? Maybe you notice even by going through the both examples. And then how will you apply this at your next presentation or defense? Anybody have any thoughts or insights? And you know what? That's okay. Because at the end of the day, again, these are questions that we can continue to ask ourselves. And as with anything, these are introductions. It might not be something that we immediately are able to apply, but we grow with the knowing. And so it's good to be able to have the resource. And before we move, competence gives you the foundation and competence gives you permission to use it. So, confidence isn't a feeling to chase. It's a skill that we can cultivate. It's not elusive. We are already confident. It is already within us. Um, and you don't need to remove doubt. Just remind yourself to stay steady. Find opportunities to separate from that trigger and that thought and find the pause. It'll take some practice. But again, as is a skill, it's a muscle, it can be developed. So, 3 more months before the end of the year. Have a question. If I trusted my preparation fully, how would I show up differently this quarter? Let's ask ourselves that. And through the rest of this year, through the rest of your cohort. Maybe you practice your loop before your next presentations or the next time you're about to prepare for a conversation or what have you. Maybe you also record yourself. Maybe you begin to become aware of your tone, of your posture, of your presence, and then begin to repeat your reframes daily, especially if you have a consistent trigger that you can kind of touch on. Repeat your reframes daily until it feels embodied, until you can feel it naturally. And again, remember all this growth takes time. But it's important to remember that confidence is remembering who you already are and allowing others to see it. So we're here for you. um, as your life coaches and residents. And thank you again for your time, your curiosity, for your participation. And of course, we loved your reflections. I will be sending out a survey after this group coaching, as well as the additional coachings that we'll have through your program, because we do want to hear from you. We want to know um, how this is. We want to know if there's anything else that we can be doing for you, if there's anything else you're interested in learning. So, on that note, we have about 13 minutes. We can open the floor for questions. Don't throw tomatoes, only hearts.
Uh, I I really appreciate that. I think that confidence is part of me in the scientific journey that I lack a little bit. And I always talk about that with my supervisor and other teachers and professors in the research group. And what I'm doing right now is trying to, if I'm not fully confident about myself, I try to be confident in what they see on me, you know?
Hmm.
I think this has helped me to keeping on the journey. Uh, I don't know. It was just the feeling that I had during the presentation. And I think the most important thing that I learned today was the part about the thought that always it started with the trigger, but the response is about our thought, is
Hmm.
our decision to uh, keep our mind in the bad thought or rethinking that to uh, change the final result.
Hmm.
It's something important from now on for me.
And this is your tool. And this is something that you can just put into your tool belt. And as you start to become more aware of those triggers, now that you kind of have a word and a sequence to kind of play with, you can start to also just pull those thoughts. And as you are working to build your presence in the scientific space in your career, you can start to practice those reframes, just as we were discussing.
Mm.
And I promise you, the more you practice, the more you study yourself, and the more you give yourself grace to grow, you will grow.
Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you for your shares. So I am so grateful to be with you guys this evening. This is going to be the deck has already been shared, so I'm sure we'll make sure that that is accessible to you all. Marcia, actually, I can include that with the survey to the group so everybody has it. And if you all, again, have any additional questions or insights after today, please, you have my email. You can respond to me, Marcia, or your direct life coach. We are just here to be able to be of support for you. I'll pass it on to Marcia. Is there anything that you wanted to go over before closing? I can.
No, no, just like see if anyone else has any thoughts about like what makes you confident or not confident about something.
Ah, deixa eu aproveitar então esse pouquinho de minutos que tá tendo, Márcia. Eu peço perdão, gente, não, eu perdi uma boa parte da, da apresentação, uma boa apresentação da Briana. Nossa, eu gostei bastante, mas o bom assim que um pouquinho do aplicativo me ajudou aqui, mas graças a Deus tem a intérprete, aí eu consegui entender um pouco mais. Mas que bom, eu fiquei sabendo que vai ter os slides, né? Eu vou conseguir recorrer então a esses slides. E eu não sei se no comecinho dessa parte assim, que ela falou assim que a confiança ela é uma habilidade. E se no comecinho se ela chegou a comentar assim, como que a gente consegue ter essa habilidade para a gente conseguir ter mais confiança, para a gente conseguir ser mais segura, do que a gente fala, né, de modo geral, até mesmo para a gente falar de si próprio. Sabe como que a gente consegue ter essa confiança, como a gente consegue ter essa habilidade para, enfim, de modo geral.
That's a great question, and I'm glad that you brought it back to the front. Because and that's actually one of the reasons why we did the embodiment practice. It's because we are competent, as we were mentioning, we were here for a reason. We worked really hard, we found the scholarship, we did the work, we're here, we earned this. So, and so even though that exists, that confidence level can still sometimes like falter and not be as strong. And normally, that is the case because there is a belief that is not connecting the two. There is something that we are believing about ourselves, about our competence, that um, is keeping our confidence small. And so the loop was a resource in helping develop your confidence by raising your awareness about the spaces in which it's challenged. So think about, you know, in a situation where someone maybe overstepped a boundary, right? And the initial thought was, oh, maybe I did something, right? Where that is naturally a hit to our confidence because somewhere, even though that boundary was crossed, we are trying to protect ourselves. We are taking fault in some way. And just in this example, and it may not be applicable, it's just an example, but we have the opportunity from this cycle to reflect on that trigger, reflect on the initial thought and how that made you feel, and empower ourselves to find a new thought. Maybe when the boundary is crossed, we can think, this is an opportunity for me to show myself that I deserve safety. This is an opportunity to show myself that I believe in the power of my own voice. And what's the emotion that can come from that? Confidence. There can also be some peace there. That behavior, you speak calmly in response to that boundary crossing and saying, you know what? That didn't feel right. And I'm going to remove myself. Or this is how you can respond or how you can relate or engage with me. And the confidence grows the more we are aware of the trigger, the more we have the opportunity to reframe those thoughts, and then those new behaviors happen. So that's why we talk about confidence being a skill, because um, it's it takes time. It takes practice. Our bodies need to be reminded that it exists within us and that we are recognizing it for ourselves too. Very simply, every time we choose ourselves, we have the opportunity to build our confidence. Does that make sense? How'd you
Fez
like the
todo
topic?
sentido.
Okay,
E,
good, good, good.
a-
I love these
and
things, and I know Madhu and Shabna probably loves it as well, but these are the spaces that helps us be who we want to be, right? Through coaching, through gathering resources, through sharing experiences, and recognizing that we're not alone in all of this, you know? So continue asking questions, continue looking for those resources, and we are here to help connect the dots.
yeah, and also recognizing that this is not going to go away as you um, progress in your career, because as you progress in your career, there will be always points that you're confident, but there is like the disconnect sometimes of your beliefs and your capabilities.
Mhm.
And as you progress in your career, being aware of that is super important, to build that confidence, and then believe things that are compatible with your qualification. And sometimes we like tend to like distance ourselves, like, oh, I don't know, we think we are less, or others are seeing like only your good, like, oh, they are overseeing me, maybe I don't deserve that much. And that is like amazing if, like you would say, successful people would be confident 100% of the time. But I don't think that is true. I think everybody will have to continuously working on that. Um, yeah. So
It
thank you, Brianna, for bringing this such a important topic here today. Yeah.
it helps me as much as it helps you all, I promise, because this is also the practice. So thank you for receiving it, Marcia. Thank you for letting me host, and yeah, we'll be sending an email soon.